I know I'm waiting for something to happen to me. This waiting comes with trials and challenges. Nothing in life is free. My Lord, show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long. Make me strong. Sometimes it just gets too much. I feel that I've lost touch. I know the road is long. Make me strong. I know I'm waiting, yearning for something known only to me. This waiting comes with trials and challenges. Life is one mystery. I wish that somehow you'd tell me out of love that on that day you'll forgive me. But we'll never know, 'cause that's not the way it was. I beg for your mercy. My Lord, show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long. Make me strong. Sometimes it just gets too much. I feel that I've lost touch. I know the road is long. Make me strong. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, our dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to the second last night of the Book of the World, journeying with the Quran in 30 nights. I would like to welcome with me our dear brother Dr. Hassan Lami.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel Enlightened Thought and follow us by viewing the live streaming session on Facebook, sydney.org.au. Please share your comments and questions. We would love to learn from your thoughts and insights on the topics we are presenting over the nights. The roadmap for tonight's session will go as follows. In the first part, I will introduce a very important notion in Surat al-Jumu'a, and I titled it Like Donkeys Carrying Books. And then Brother Hassan Lami will present on the notion of repentance as a growth mindset. And in part 2, I will present on the topic of civic altruism, a warm circle, and Brother Lami will also present from Surat al Tahreem on the notion of a lotus tree or flower, to be more accurate. Without further ado, let us now listen to the first recitation of the Quran for tonight by Sheikh Mohamed al-Dihnim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته
ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, dear brothers and sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surat al-Jumu'a, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. The example of those who were entrusted with the Torah is like a donkey. Perhaps without acting on it, they become like a donkey carrying piles of books. What are the mechanisms of donkey manipulation? One of the greatest minds of the 20th century is Dr. Ali Shariati. Dr. Shariati has a very important lecture titled Al-Nabaha wal-Istihmar, which was very well received, and it became an important subject matter for reflection amongst a number of intellectuals as well as people across different continents. One of the most important lectures by Dr. Shariati. Dr. Shariati makes a distinction between two types of modes of being in the world. Number one, he calls it an-nabaha. And an-nabaha is twofold. It's the enlightened self-awareness individually and the enlightened social awareness collectively. So an-nabaha, that's why we say tanabbah or intibah, meaning to be alert, to be vigilant, to be awakened, is this sense of sensitivity and awareness of the immediate challenges and problems in your society. And al-istihmar, which is the opposite of an-nabaha, is a mechanism that functions at two levels. The first, I translated it as naivety, to be naive, so to be heedless. And naivety often causes people to become instruments, as Brother Hassan mentioned last night and as we touched on in previous nights. And the second is stupidity, which is often manifested when we prioritize the trivial over the essential. And Shariati gives the example of someone whose house is under fire, and a neighbor comes and says to him, the adhan was raised, let's go and pray. Al-istihmar, he is to be subjugated and to be someone who does not reflect on the moment, but is rather concerned with the pattern of thinking. Pattern of thinking is we need to pray on time, which is in itself a virtue. However, because this individual is disintegrated disengaged from his immediate environment and from his immediate circumstances, he is unable to understand and see how the obligation is to respond to what is more important and to postpone what is least important in the given circumstances. And we come across different examples of stupidity in our religious, political, academic lives. It is not limited to our religiosity. However, when we think back and try to look into the tradition of rationality in Islam, we come across interesting episodes in the life of the Prophet as he was cultivating the character of the Muslims, whereby the Prophet counters this mechanism of istihmar, this mechanism of naivety and stupidity, of heedlessness and drowning in detail. Once there was a man who was brought to the Prophet, and obviously his companions were proud of him being a pious man. So they said to the Prophet, this man is so and so, and he is a very pious individual. The Prophet said to them, tell me about his reason. He said to him, he prays 5 times a day. He said, tell me about his reason. They said to him, he fasts. He does all the a'mal. He said, tell me about his reason. In other words, whoever, as the Prophet says, lacks a sense of understanding, lacks religion. And whoever lacks religion based on a sense of understanding will live in a world where he finds himself dislocated and unable to respond in a manner that helps society, helps his own life and the people around him in flourishing and attaining enlightenment. Why is being responsible difficult and time consuming? When Allah spoke about the Torah and how the children of Israel failed to be responsible for the knowledge they were carrying, what is the message at stake? I think it is in the way we approach knowledge itself. On the one hand, we become in the position of viewing knowledge as a property. On the other hand, because knowledge now is our property, we become complacent and less responsible in sharing this knowledge.
So knowledge becomes the end itself.
Hassan.
Knowledge for the sake of knowledge.
Hassan. Knowledge for the sake of knowledge. And that's why you see, for example, for Bani Israel, knowledge was an exhibition. Whereas in the monotheistic tradition, knowledge should be an inquisition. For Bani Israel, knowledge was a show. But in the monotheistic tradition, knowledge is a blow that should awaken us from our naivety and stupidity. To borrow an old Turkish saying, perhaps it is difficult to be responsible. Turks say it is like chewing an iron chickpea. Obviously, Turks love roasted chickpeas as a snack. Our jaws become sore. Our teeth wear down. And the iron chickpea seems unchanged. This is the impatience of the human being to deal with this trust, with this knowledge. And this is the difference between someone who drives a car and someone who runs a marathon. In fact, as the spiritual masters say, the destination is the journey. Once we believe and assume that we've reached the destination, we will no longer view knowledge as a responsibility. Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, we spoke about Ibrahim on previous nights. In his relationship with Ismail, provides us with an example from a different angle of how we can avoid istihmar. Even when we are wrestling in the battlefield of Iman. For example, Ibrahim confronts his father, although he was young. Number 2, Ibrahim consults. So the first one was confrontation, second one is consultation. Ibrahim consults his son as to what he makes of the dream in an open-ended question. Number 3, Ismail is submitting to the will of God and not to the will of his father Ibrahim. Isn't this an example of an awakened mindset that determines the message by understanding the sign behind it, as opposed to following the message just because a societal tradition or a ancestry tradition instructs us to do so? My dear brothers and sisters, the Quran mentions darkness as covering the faces of the inhabitants of hell at two levels. Number 1, moral failure, and 2, it is a metaphorical loss of sight, which is defined as prejudice, and arrogance, which is a reflection of a deficiency in the intellect. As the Quran says in Surat al-Ra'd, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ أَمْ هَلْ تَسْتَوِي الظُّلُمَاتُ وَالنُّورُ. Say, are the blind equal to those who can see? And are the depths of darkness equal to the light? I came across an interesting explanation of this metaphor of darkness and light by one of our great scholars, al-Sharif al-Radi, in his important book on the metaphors of the Quran, تلخيص البيان في مجازات القرآن. And al-Sharif al-Radi passed away in the year 406 Hijri. He explains in his book the metaphor of the loss of sight as ignorance that prevents the individual from recognizing things as they really are. إدراك الشيء على ما هو عليه. Do we recognize things as they really are? That's the question. Or are we blinded by the layers of ideology, the layers of dogma? Even when we are reading, as Brother Hassan mentioned last night, the books of philosophers, scholars, intellectuals, to إدراك الشيء على ما هو عليه means to actually read the primary source and not the secondary source, whether intentional or unintentional. So prejudice is equal to the loss of sight and a deficiency in intellect because of this impaired judgment. Once a group of people in Medina gathered around a man, and they said to everybody, this is a allama. They came to the Prophet, they said to him, this is a allama, he is a scholar. The Prophet said to them, what is the matter with this allama? They said, إنه علامة بأنساب العرب. He is a scholar who is an expert in the lineage, pedigree, and progenies of the Arabs. So he said to them, هذا علم لا ينفع من علمه ولا يضر من جهله. This is a knowledge or a field that does not benefit those who learn it, nor does it cause harm to those who don't learn it. So again, here we are provided with a standard of utility, functionality. What is the function of your religiosity in the world? It is not a dogma, a way of life. And how does it manifest? I'll quickly finish off with, if you permit me, wanted to finish off with a story, but perhaps we can leave it to the end. But before I do so, let me in a nutshell summarize to you donkey carrying books and how the Quran provides us with this stark example of those who carry knowledge without any sense of understanding. It is like, and I borrow Peter Berger's example here, the well-known sociologist. He says it is like the fate of that magician who has finally found the formula that will release the mighty jinn from the bottle, but cannot recollect what it was that he wanted to ask of the jinn in the first place. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. Let us now listen to the second recitation of the Quran by Sheikh Mohamed al-Dehnawi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو الذي بعث في بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا توبوا إلى الله توبة نصوحا عسى ربكم أن يكفر عنكم سيئاتكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار يوم لا يخزي الله النبي والذين آمنوا معه نورهم يسعى بين أيديهم وبأيمانهم يقولون ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you, Akh Mohamed, for such an insightful commentary on the verse, and how beautifully you ended with that beautiful quotation. So tonight I'll be covering Surat al Tahreem, verse number 8. But before doing so, I'll finish off from last night's topic on compassion, so we haven't left the topic halfway. So if you remember, we were talking about the verse number 26 of Surat al-Tur. قالوا إنا كنا قبل في أهلنا مشفقين. That the people of paradise, they answered the reason why they are in the paradise because of this virtue, mushfiqeen, and we translated that as the virtue of compassion. And we continue to talk about compassion. Now I'm just gonna complete the notion of compassion. So if you remember, we said compassion is empathy, which means all together, come together and we suffer, to minimize the sense of suffering so you don't feel alone in the world. And we differentiated that from the notion of sympathy, mercy and pity. So what it means to be compassionate and what it requires to be compassionate is, the more one person knows about the human condition, the more you know about the human condition, then you're able to associate and identify with suffering human beings. So it's the matter of identification with sufferings. If you cannot identify with sufferings, you cannot be compassionate. It's like that rich boy, as I said, when he was asked, tell us about poverty or a poor student, he said he was poor, the gardener was poor, the chef was poor. So it has no identification with the concept of suffering. And when many studies were done after World War II, why so many scientists, religious people, religious authorities were involved in Nazi concentration camps, although they were good people? It was this lack of identification with suffering. Why? Because of two things. Number one, they are not us. Number two, they're not human beings. We are the superior race. And that's why the colonization, when happened, the European colonization of Asian countries and African countries, it happened because they're not us and they're not human beings, because we are the creator of civilization. So this notion, which doesn't have to be from the European colonization, can happen from within us as well. That, for example, I have the superior religion on the path of salvation. They not us. They do not belong to our religion. They not human beings. And you can see, as soon as you say they're not us, that means you cannot identify with the suffering. How can you identify with the suffering of a non-human being? So as a result, you lose the sense of compassion. As a result, atrocities happen. As a result, world wars happen. As a result, killing and murder and so on and so forth happens. That's why Dalai Lama, the famous spiritual master of Buddhism, he says that compassion is a necessity, not a luxury. And human survival depends on the notion of compassion. Why does he say human survival depends on the compassion? It's because if we don't identify with the suffering of the other, we will lose this notion of identification and connecting with other. And that's why the famous philosopher of 20th century, Schopenhauer, he said that there are three moral the incentives for morality. Why do we do moral actions? Or not necessarily moral actions, but why do we do our actions? Three incentives, three moral incentives. Some people do their actions because they are self-centered, egoistic. So I do it because it brings me benefit. It can be ethically good, that action. It can be ethically bad, but I do it just for the sake of self-centeredness. Other people, this incentive, what is the incentive? They are vicious. He calls it malice. So they are vicious in the incentive. But there is a third incentive, and that is compassion. And he says, Schopenhauer said for morality to happen, we need to use this third incentive, which is compassion. Today, one of the viewers shared with us a very beautiful writing on the notion of compassion that I would like to read to see how important the notion of compassion is. So the sister shared this anthropological basically investigation, inspection. A student once asked her anthropologist teacher, what is the earliest sign of civilization? So what is the earliest sign of civilization? The student expected now there's going to be an answer such as a clay pot, a stone, or maybe a weapon, maybe an architecture. But look at this smart teacher. And teachers are not simply to give us the knowledge. They are about to give us what to ask the jinn. Margaret, the anthropologist, the teacher, thought for a moment, then she said, a healed femur. As you know, femur is the longest bone, and it's the bone in your thigh. So she said a healed femur, which is very interesting in terms of this observation. A femur is the longest bone in the body, linking hip to knee. In societies without the benefits of modern medicine, it takes about 6 weeks of rest for a fractured femur to heal. A healed femur shows that someone cared for the injured person, did the hunting and gathering, stayed with them, and offered physical protection and human companionship until the injury could mend. As a result, the first sign of civilization is compassion, as seen in this healed femur. Wow. So if we want to heal the femur of the world, we need to promote, advocate, and show compassion to the world. So I would like to finish this part by mentioning 3 requirements to be compassionate. What are these 3 requirements? For me to be compassionate towards Brother Mohammed, for Brother Mohammed to be compassionate towards me, we need 3 things. Number 1, when we are dealing with someone else, we need to forget the past. And maybe that's one of the meanings of Kareem al-Safh that we read in Dua Joshan Kabir. We cannot deal with someone from the point that I remember their past, I'm going to judge them with their past. I cannot be compassionate, because everyone's got a past where they've committed mistakes, they've committed sins, and if you want to bring that past in front of you, you never can move on. So the first requirement when you're dealing with another human being is to forget their past. Second is to move beyond the appearance and avoid any prejudices and prejudgment, because sometimes we look at someone, we already formed an image which may prevent us from being compassionate. For example, I look at someone, they have a beard. Maybe I don't like beards and I associate that to something. I look at someone, they have fully shaved. Maybe I don't like someone who is fully shaved. I look at someone, maybe their hair is a different style. Someone is with a scarf, someone is dressed differently. Such observation and judgment of the appearance will prevent us from being compassionate, because at the end of the day, our brain is busy in terms of connecting external phenomena to a concept. And if we're not aware of that on a constant basis, we cannot express compassion to every human being in the world. And that's why Quran says Prophet is rahmatun lil alameen. He's a mercy and compassion to the world. Didn't say rahmatun lil mu'minin, to the faithful, rahmatun lil muslimin, to Muslims, rahmatun lil muwahhidin, to monotheists, rahmatun lil alameen. If we accept Quran and Prophet, who is the messenger and the prophet of this religion and the final messenger, expressing mercy to everyone regardless of the title, then we have to exercise that in order to be following his footsteps. And the third, not to be imprisoned by our dogmas. Someone may say, then what do I do with my religion? What do I do with my ideology? There is one solution to it. Ideologies can become dogma. Do you know when they become dogma? When we believe they are fixed and they are the exact truth in the world. I have a solution, or one of the suggested solutions, to prevent this ideology, this belief system, this religion to become a dogma. And that is to say, I believe in this religion, I believe in this virtue, I believe in this sacred book, till proven otherwise. The moment you say till proven otherwise, it means you have opened your mind to other possibilities. I believe in this, maybe it changes in the future if there is an evidence, as Quran says, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring forth your evidence. If you don't have this till, it becomes a dogma, it becomes fixed. But if you don't have this till, it means that I believe till there is an evidence contrary to the current belief. So I'll stop here. Unfortunately, couldn't do Tahreem. We come back in the second part and try to do Tahreem verse 8. To you, Mohamed.
Thank you very much, Hassan, Lami, for your enlightening thoughts. Let us go for a 5-minute break and then we'll continue together, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين ومريم ابنة عمران التي أحصنت فرجها فنفخنا فيه من روحنا وصدقت بكلمات ربها وكتبه وكانت من القانتين.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Now going straight to Surat al Tahreem, verse 8. So if you have Quran, bring verse 8. The title is Tawbah, a sign of growth mindset. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, all those who have entered the city of peacefulness and tranquility, tubu ilallah. Return, make a U-turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawbatan nasuha, a return which is as pure as honey. You know, honey has the wax. Yeah, Arabs call honey when it's pure, free from any wax, nasuh. That's why an-nasiha, advice, is called an-nasiha, because the advice is meant to be as pure as honey, free from wax. And I think this verse is one of the heart-touching and heartfelt verses in Quran, as if a prophet was reading it probably with tears in his eyes. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu tubu ilallahi tawbatan nasuha. Rumi in his book Masnavi has a very beautiful story about this verse. He says that there was a man, obviously it's a fictional story, by the name of Nasuh. This man was very good looking. He didn't have any basically facial hair, so he looked like a woman. And he decided to go and work in one of these public baths, the hammams in the past, because there was no pipes. So there was a public bath where everyone used to go whenever they needed. So he decided to go and work in a female public bath and present himself as a dallak, washing people's back. So he went and committed this big sin and worked in the public bath, and every few months he repented but came back again. Once the king's daughter, Rumi says, came to Nasuh, and all of a sudden she says that I've lost my earring. So they start to search, they couldn't find it. Then the authorities came, they closed everywhere. They said that now we have to get everyone naked. Excuse the language, but Rumi is narrating this story to tell us what is a tawbah nasuha. So Nasuh gets very upset. He said, that's the end of my life. So Rumi continues on, we don't have time to go through it, in his beautiful imagination and beautification of the poem. So basically, by the time they get to him, he faints. But all of a sudden, someone screams that we have found the earring. Then he comes back to life, and he says that that's it, I'm going to repent. I'm going to repent, and I will not come back again. Then the next day, they bring the glad tidings to him, saying that the king's daughter wants you to be the only dalak for her, because you're really good and you're very strong. And we're going to give you lots of money and you're going to be in the palace. But he said, that's it. This is a Tawbah Nasuh. His name was Nasuh. This is a Tawbah of Nasuh that will never be broken again. And Rumi concludes that this is a Tawbah Nasuh, in which you have experienced death, and God put a veil upon your sins and your atrocities and your mistakes, and now you decide not to go back.
You're reborn.
You're reborn. That's a renaissance, a human renaissance.
Wow.
So why did I title it the growth mindset? In recent decades, multiple psychological studies have been done whereby two types of mindsets have been found. Mindset is a state of mind, how you see the world, how you see difficulties, how you see mistakes. They found that there are two types of mindsets. There is a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. And there are 5 major differences, but because of the limitation of time, and I want to move to verse 10 to 12, I will mention 2 of them. At the belief system, a fixed mindset says that if you have any skill, if you have any intelligence, it's natural. A growth mindset says that skill can be attained and learned. A fixed mindset says that failure is shameful. But a growth mindset says that failure is a valuable lesson for us. A fixed mindset says that some people, if they're good, they're naturally good. And some people are losers, they're naturally losers. But a growth mindset says that if some people are good, it's because they attained it. And if some people are losers, they have attained that level of loss as well. And a fixed mindset says that I'm not in control of my abilities. I cannot change the current situation. But the growth mindset says that I am in control of my abilities, despite all of the social, despite all the life circumstances, still I'm in control of my abilities. As a result of this belief system, a fixed mindset, when they face mistakes, number 1, they avoid it. Number 2, they get discouraged. And number 3, they hide it. But a growth mindset, when they face mistakes, when they do sins, they see it as a valuable opportunity to improve. They see a learning opportunity in that. They don't get discouraged. In the religious text, we may say this is Tawbah. Tawbah indicates a growth mindset, whereby you acknowledge that you have committed a mistake, but to say, I can change it, I can return. But I want to return like Nasuh return, from death to life. Now let's go to verse 10 to 12 of Surat al Tahreem, same page. These 3 verses or 4 verses provide us with 4 women in the history. 2 of them were amongst the wrongdoers, and the other 2 were amongst the good doers. And Quran provides us with 4 women in history. I titled this part, Be a Lotus, Be a Water Lily Flower. Why? If you look at the lotus is beautiful. You look at the color, you look at the blossom, you enjoy it. But where does it grow? It grows in the most dirty places. It grows in a pond. It grows in areas, in the algae basically populated areas. But lotus is beautiful. That's why in Buddhist culture and Hindu culture, they say that a lotus is telling us, despite the environment is filthy, despite the environment is impure, despite the environment is ugly, but you can be beautiful, you can be pure, you can be clear. That's why Krishna Randa, the the spiritual master of Hinduism in 20th century. He said that the reason we go to the temples wearing this water lily or lotus is to say to God this beautiful dua that I think Imra'at Fir'aun, known as Asiya in the books of history, made to God. Oh God, I know I'm in a filthy environment. I know I'm living in environments surrounded with people committing atrocities, but make me like this lily flower, make me like this lotus, beautiful. At night, close myself, and in the morning, before the first sunlight comes, I blossom. So I think, to summarize, despite the wife of Nuh and the wife of Lut were living with two prophets, they failed. But Asiya, Imra'at Fir'aun, and Maryam, despite living in an environment where it was not conducive to being good, they tried to be a lotus. And I think there is one factor here. Why 4 women? Why didn't the Quran mention 2 men and 2 women? I think another factor is to add to the social determinants of life, because as we know, women across history since the beginning till now have been marginalized, have been oppressed, and their rights have been gradually improving. Wants to say that despite this marginalization, try to be a lotus despite all these social determinants of life. So I want to finish my part with this dua of Imra'at Fir'aun. قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة. Oh my Lord, I want you to build a house in your Jannah. I want that lotus in your household. وَنَجِّنِ مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ, and save me from Fir'aun. Because as we know, Fir'aun can be of 2 types. Can be the external Fir'aun, but can be the internal Fir'aun. And his actions. وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Let's go to the second recitation by Sheikh Mohamed Dahnawi.
Hassan.
Allah يخليك يا Mohamed.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you very much, Brother Hassan, for this aesthetic and natural reflection on Asiya and her struggle to be, that beautiful flower. Very nice explanation and reflection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat al-Insan says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. They give food with love to the poor, to the orphan, and to the captives, saying, we feed you only for the sake of God. We desire neither reward nor thanks from you. When I looked into this lovely verse in Surat al-Insan, I had to be al-Insan before being al-Muslim. And to be al-Insan, you have to find that common denominator in other scriptures and in other traditions. So I chose the New Testament. I looked into the New Testament and I found a parallel with this ayah in Luke chapter 14 from verses 12 to 14. Jesus says, he said also to the one who invited him, when you give a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Isn't this a resemblance with the ayah we just recited in Surat al-Insan? إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. My dear brothers and sisters, the purpose of hospitality and charity is not only to solidify social relationships, but rather to reach out to those who are living on the margins of society. People we describe in world literature as the unsung heroes of society. And how do we know whether we live in a healthy community or not? We know if that community asks its unsung heroes to sing. And one way of doing so is to recognize them through charity with dignity and hospitality with love. Not only reaching out to materially poor people, but also those who suffer disabilities and disadvantages. The rich should not be given preference over the poor in accepting invitation. These are some of the etiquettes in the Islamic tradition. The intention should be to please them and their heart, and not just to merely give them. Thirdly, the invitation should not be rejected because of distance. Even if there is a poor man or woman, or a community of poor people living afar from the city, you have an obligation, if you have the capacity and the time, to actually respond to their invitation. And there are three, if you wish, types of lessons we can derive from the notion of civic altruism. Because as we said in previous nights, the model of ethics in Islam is not individual but social. Meaning that there is an obligation on the community to create sustainable social institutions. Keep that society, bless you, to keep that society in a functional condition. And what I mean by that, as I will share an example, is that when you empower those who are living on the margins of society, you actually enable them to reach their full potential. And this is not a privilege, but rather a right. It is a right. And so the first dimension is purification of wealth. The second is the distribution of excess. And the third is the creation of relationships. So again, the model of charity and hospitality in Islam is a relational model, and not one based on individualistic rewards and motivations. Now, some jurists made a distinction between a faqir and a miskin. They said a faqir is someone in destitute. So these are the passive poor people who ask for nothing but expect everything from God. Whereas a miskin are those who beg and ask.
But probably miskin, considering comes from sakana, it's more like someone being disabled, either
Sure.
as a physical disability or age disability.
Hassan.
That can be the modern translation.
Absolutely, absolutely. The beautiful tracing to the etymology of the word, definitely. And perhaps you find examples of this meaning as well in modern day society, especially in more affluent societies. And this reminds us of Prophet Mohamed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who once said, "The best Islam is that you feed the hungry and spread peace among those whom you know and those you do not know." Let me introduce to you the notion of altruism from a psychological and sociological perspective. Altruism is derived from the Latin alter, which means other. And it was first used in the 19th century by one of the founders of sociology, Auguste Comte. One of the leading and remarkable figures in our society today who studied extensively this topic and is highly respected is psychologist Daniel Batson. He says altruism is a motivational state with the ultimate goal of increasing another's welfare. And he distinguishes between altruism as an ultimate goal and altruism as a means. He says altruism as an ultimate goal is explicit. My aim is to accomplish the welfare of the other. Whereas altruism as a means says, I accomplish the other's welfare with a view to fulfilling my own well-being. As you can see the difference. In Surat al-Insan, altruism is presented in the first meaning with the ultimate goal of accomplishing the welfare of the other. Let me provide you a sketch on the different modes of altruism. Number one, goodness, a way of being that translates into actions as soon as circumstances allow. So this is a very, if you wish, conditioned mode of altruism. Second is benevolence, to want the well-being of the other. So there is a good disposition accompanied by a desire to act on that desire. That's benevolence. 3 is caring in a lasting way with vigilance about another's fate. One is anxious to provide for the other person's needs and to remedy his suffering.
It's like ishfaq, mushfiqeen.
Hassan. And this third example was best exemplified by Imam Ali alayhi salam, which Brother Hassan mentioned last night. 4 dedication, selflessly placing oneself in the service of persons or a cause that benefits society. Number 5, kindness, a form of caring manifested in the way we behave towards others. And 6, fraternity, which stems from the feeling of belonging to the great human family. And this mode of altruism evokes feelings of harmony and union. Let me finish off with a modern example of civic altruism, embodying this ayah in Surat al-Insan from the Indian subcontinent. Sanjay Bakar Roy, the great social activist, at the age of 20, son of a good family, educated in one of the most prestigious schools in India. He was destined for a fine career. His mother always pictured him as a doctor, as an engineer, as an official working in the World Bank. That year in 1965, a terrible famine broke out in the province of Bihar, one of the poorest states in India. Inspired by one of the close companions of the Mahatma Gandhi, he wanted to go and see what was happening in the Indian villages. He returned a few weeks later, transformed, and told his mother that he will settle in the village of Tilonia and he will never return. Obviously, the family were trying to console the mother. She went in a state of coma, saying to her, this is the zeal of a youth. He will return eventually. He stayed in this village for decades. After moving to another village, the local authorities did not understand why is he doing so. They said to him, are you running away from the police? He said no. They said to him, did you fail your exams? He said no. They asked him, were you unable to get a government job? He said no. Banka realized that he could do more than digging wells, because in his first travel, initially, he decided to dig wells in that village, and he dug 300 wells during his stay. But now he realized that he needs to move to a higher level of altruism. He observed that the men who had completed their studies left the villages for the cities to serve capitalism and contributed nothing to the local village. And so he decided to educate women aged 35 to 50 who had more free time as active women in that society than mothers with families. He said even if they were illiterate, we could train them and turn them into solar engineers, able to make solar panels. No risk there is in them leaving the village. And indeed he accomplished his goal, and the Indian government adopted his project. Even his family was later proud of him to realize that his inner calling from the start to achieve this civic altruism was the true meaning of life. And it reminds me of Victor Hugo, who once said, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
It's so hard to explain what I'm feeling, but I guess it's okay, 'cause I'll keep believing. There's something deep inside, something that's calling. It's calling you and I. It's taking us up high to healing. A simple act of kindness brings such meaning. A smile can change a life. Let's start living and feeling. Let's start healing. Heal and you will be healed. Break every border. Give and you will receive. It's nature's order. There is a hidden force pulling us closer. It's pulling you and I. It's pulling us up high to healing. A simple act of kindness brings such meaning. A smile can change a life. Let's start healing and feeling. Let's start healing. Hearts in the hand of another heart. and in God's hand are all hearts. And eye takes care of another eye, and from God's eye nothing hurts. Seek only to give and you receive. So heal and you will be healed. Healed and تبسمك لأخيك صدقة، كل معروف صدقة. قلب بين يدي قلب، يد الله كل قلب، عين ترعى عينا وعين الله ترعى، كلمة طيبة صدقة، تبسمك لأخيك صدقة، كل معروف صدقة. اللهم اشفي شفاء لا يغادر سقما، اللهم اشفي شفاء لا يغادر سقما، اللهم اشفي شفاء لا يغادر سقما، اللهم اشفي شفاء. Let's start.